Good. What's more nervous, mate? A scrum for Wales or this podcast?
Absolutely this.
Yeah.
Mate, 100%.
I know you're joking. WillGriff, how you doing, brother?
Good, mate.
Yeah?
Yeah, mate. Really excited to be here. It's, never done anything like this before, but I appreciate you asking me to come on.
Oh, mate, well, first of all, I'm grateful for you coming on. I've known you throughout, we were a youngster when, districts and college, uni. Oh, no, college, yeah. When you were playing for the college for Pencoed. And when I, seen the career you're having and how far you've come, and then when you played for Wales this year, I was just like, mate, got to get this guy on. Got to get him on, and I know you're up in sales, so I've been haggling you a little bit now. Brother, when you coming down? So we finally made it, so yeah. Thanks, man.
That's all good, mate. We've been talking for a few months, haven't we? Like you say, we've known each other for quite a few years, really.
Yeah.
Maybe not spoken to each other that much, but yeah, we've known each other for a long time, haven't we?
100%, man, and you haven't changed. You're still massive. I remember, like in college, where I was just doing a bricklaying course, and Nick would ask me now and then to come train with you boys. But mate, you used to be the guy just lifting tin, and like everyone else was decent size, and then there was this big ass white dude. Just genetically big, or
I guess so. I started lifting weights pretty early. My dad was not, he wasn't a big bloke, but I guess he was, pretty stocky. And then, he had his own sort of like weight set. And so pretty early on, I, started using that. Maybe, 10, 11, 12-ish.
Really?
But I guess it's just from his genetics being passed down onto me and my mum's. And it's just, it's just something I've enjoyed doing as well.
Yeah. So was it rugby then lifting weights, or was it always?
Oh, rugby was first.
Yeah,
Rugby was always first. I started playing when I was 4.
Yeah, wow.
And then, it's just, gym was, something that I kind of picked up and really enjoyed along the way, and I still do.
Yeah. Is it something you look forward to doing in pre-season and in season? Like,
yeah, it's nice to be able to, I guess, just do what you want, really.
Yeah.
There's no restrictions within S&C's program or kind of fatigue from playing and training.
Yeah.
So you can kind of have a bit more fun and get a bit more creative in the gym, yeah.
Nice, mate. Well, I'm looking forward to talking a bit about your journey, but more importantly, I suppose it hasn't been the smooth road, as in like that was the journey that this is going to be simple for you. You've had to work your ass off, and to get back into the campaign of the Six Nations, that I suppose that didn't. I bet you didn't expect that to happen after, I don't know, having that long gap from playing previously.
No, absolutely. It's probably been one of the more unusual sort of roads to, I suppose, professional rugby, and even throughout being a professional rugby player, it's been a lot more sort of unusual turns along the way. With the Six Nations, I genuinely was so surprised to be involved in that. Never mind eventually playing, considering the last sort of few months I had prior to that. So yeah, it was a very nice surprise, but also a bit of a shock. Yeah.
When you who was your first game against?
Of the tournament, or when I played
tournament? Yeah.
The first game was against France. Yeah.
France, and you played so well. Oh no, I mean not France against France. I mean the game that you played at.
Ireland.
Yeah,
Ireland.
Ireland.
Ireland. Yeah.
Yeah, when you played really well in that game, mate, and your scrummaging was unreal.
I guess that whole week was a bit of a blur, really, but also really excited the whole time.
Yeah.
But also really nervous. It was a lot of mixed emotions, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was so pleased, and I'm always hard on myself, but I'm also really pleased at how I played that day, because I guess it was my chance to prove a lot of people wrong again.
100%. Yeah.
But I just want to make my family proud for I guess, how tough it had been maybe the year and a half or so before that. Yeah.
Did you change your approach to that game, like as in I've got nothing to lose mentality? Because it wasn't as if you were in the start of the campaign. You've come in when Sherratt in, and
Jockey
came in and made those changes, and it was as if all you boys who came in kind of just said, like, let's have a crack, you know? It was that mentality. Was it like that, or was it the same type of pressure you always put on yourself?
Personally, I don't really tend to feel much pressure. Doesn't matter where I'm playing or which environment I'm in. I guess the most pressure I feel is when I put it on myself. But I wouldn't say it was, no pressure, but it was just, I guess, a lot more freedom considering the changing in the coaching staff.
Yeah.
And, different game plans and different attacking structures. That it was maybe, just a bit more freedom about us, I guess. And a willingness to kind of try and enjoy these next few weeks because no one knew what was going to happen afterwards.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of good things about Jockey, and we just touched on it before this. What is it that he provides that's different?
Even though I only spent, 3 weeks with him, he was just really fun to be around. And he's someone who would ask a lot of questions, like ask about your family, how's life, and, ask about players that he knows that you know, and that sort of stuff. And he's just a really genuine, friendly bloke. And I found it so easy to connect and to talk to. And, although, I'd never met him before.
Yeah,
which is, very unusual.
Yeah, I love that. So, like you said, you were with him for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And he was more interested in you as a person than just a player. That's massive, right? Because in the rugby world or sports world, you can become like a bit of a production, like a piece of meat to some people, where you're like, this is your contract. If you're not fit, if you are fit, we love you. If you're not fit, if you're injured, you can kind of have a different view on things. But when a coach shows you this care factor more than just a player, you run through walls for that guy. And is that the kind of, what's the right word to use? Is that the kind of thing that Jockey provided, essentially, where it was fun to be around, but more importantly, buy into what he believes in?
I guess so, yeah. But it wasn't just Jockey, it was Bomb, it was the rest of the coaches too, Humph, and Forsh. And I've known Forsh for a long time, and he's always been that type of person too. But it was just really interesting considering, and Rhys Thomas. They were all very similar kind of people in that sense, which made it so easy to kind of be, transferred to the, list. Not that we never don't try our best, but it means that much more when they care about you in that way as well.
You mentioned then Bomb, Humphreys, and Rhys Thomas. Like, what is it like? If 3 forwards there, right? Coaching you.
Yeah.
Is it one that's like the leader of the conversation, or is it kind of like, this is my opinion, this is my opinion, this is my opinion? Because
not necessarily. I guess they all had kind of various different departments within the coaching group. Bomb was scrum, Humph was line out, and and then TR was a lot of the skills stuff. But in amongst that, I guess they feed in different ideas to individuals, to the to each other. But it was just very interesting. I've played against Bomb as in terms of him being a coach, against Quins for quite a few years, and I've always heard a lot of good things about him. So it was very, very interesting to kind of feel that. And then I've known TR ever since I was at the Blues in the academy, and I remember him being their first choice hooker, and even then it was very nice to be able to to see him again and spend a lot of time, a few weeks with him. He was a good bloke then. He's still a good bloke now, which was really enjoyable.
Good. What's Bomb like? He seems like a character.
He's a hell of a character. He's a quizmaster too, which I had no idea about. We had a couple of good quizzes on during the camp. But, he's really good fun, and I guess he's very kind of refreshing in terms of like he's always fun and joking, and but he's also you don't mess about either. Otherwise, he'll flick the switch. But most of the time, everyone knows that he knows what he's talking about. So, and he's understandable of how difficult it is to scrummage in such environments. So, when people maybe get a lot of criticism, or bringing a lot of criticism upon maybe backer forwards or whatever, that he doesn't necessarily reflect that onto the group.
Interesting that is, and I suppose from the outside in, we just see a scrum. Connect, drive, whatever, the terminology is. How much of it is mental, in the process of a scrum, looking at your opposition?
Yeah.
Obviously, you're going to try and bring everything you can. Of course. Surely it's just that slight 1% sometimes, that little slip of
it can be.
Drop of a knee or a slip. And you're like, wow.
Not even that, but you might be 60 minutes into a game and then you might be having your, 12th scrum of the game. And you've just been running around for, the whole time, hitting rucks, carrying, tackling, and, and so on. And I'd say a lot of it is certainly mental, because you can be so fatigued. And can I swear? Sorry.
Yeah, of course. Come on, mate.
You're going to be blown out your ass.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of the time you just got to dig deep and realize, if especially as a lucid or a tight head, if you don't go into it 100%, you're going to get penalised or you're going to get hammered.
Yeah.
And that reflects badly upon you, and there's no way of hiding away from it. So that's probably the hardest thing, is that you've always got to. There's no hiding places in the front row. That's probably the hardest part about it.
Would you count that as a try when you win a scrum and you've done your opposition over and you've won a penalty or something like that? Do you count that as a mental?
Oh yeah, it's always a mental win.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's maybe unspoken or spoken about. I don't know, but within front rows, it's always something that you want to do, especially a sail.
Yeah.
It's the biggest thing you can do is have a dominant pack, a dominant maul, a dominant scrum, and the more scrum penalties, more penalties, more tries, the better they are, and the more numbers of, the more likely you are of being successful.
Sail, you've been there twice now.
Mm-hmm.
You've just signed a new 1-year deal as well. Exciting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say? I always ask this to the boys that have gone over to England or moved away. What would you say the difference is between the Welsh clubland compared to England clubland?
To be honest, I haven't really thought about it too much, considering I've experienced both. I guess just I don't know why exactly, but I just really enjoyed my first 4 years there, and now which will be coming into my second year and with the second stint. I just really enjoyed those environments, whether it's because there's so many different players there, because the quality is more than likely higher.
Definitely.
I don't really know, to be honest. But I guess as a front rower and as a forward, it's always so difficult because there's no weaknesses throughout the league. Yes, this season Exeter and Newcastle were quite a few points off everyone else on the table, but they still had really good scrums and mauls and so on. And, they're still very tough to play against. There's never any easy games, never.
It just seems like you've got a good squad up there in the Sale as well, a good team, not just a good pack-up, but good backline as well. What has created that essentially for Sale then, for instance, because there's this consistency, there's it's like a lot of fluidity between the team. I suppose it stems from the coaching staff, right?
Absolutely, and I think before that is our owners, Simon Orange, Michelle Orange, Jed Mason, and they're very driven people, and they want the club to succeed. And it's not that it's never been important to us to not succeed, but it just means so much more when they're personally involved, and you see them almost every week to have a conversation, to sit down with for a couple of minutes, or how's your family and so on.
Really?
Yeah,
that's good.
Exactly. So I know we've spoken about Jock a bit similar to him, is that they're actually concerned and want to know on a personal level, and then the same across all of the coaching staff. They're all exactly the same.
Yeah.
Which is why I guess it's a very family friendly, and everyone's it's a group of mates essentially, instead of just being a squad of players put together, and and that's it.
Nice. How are you finding living up there?
I really enjoy the area. I'm not I'm not really much of a city person. I don't live in the city, but I really enjoy the area. As we spoke about earlier, there's heaps of lovely coffee shops, food places to go to, and couldn't ask for any more than that, could you?
There's just some good spots up there for food. Well, what would be your death row meal if you had a meal to eat?
Probably, I don't know, to be honest. Probably a steak.
Yeah.
I love a steak.
Yeah. Burgers and wings for me.
Really?
Yeah, I love wings.
I could probably start with wings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do love wings. But yeah, I absolutely go for a steak. Yeah.
Okay, I do love a steak, but I don't know what it is. If I'm gonna die after this, I'm going full hog everything, just bulk burgers,
No,
bigs.
absolutely. Yeah, probably steak and maybe some mac and cheese or dough for my potatoes. Yeah.
Dessert?
I don't have a particular dessert that I'm,
Yeah.
dead set on.
I just love a basic apple pie, bit of custard. Yeah. Simple.
No, yeah, it's pretty nice when we have that, on our away trips. Yeah.
Nice. Hey, if I asked you now, when you started your career to where you are now, Will, would you expect, if I said this is the career you're going to have, what would you say?
Not a chance.
Not a chance.
There's no chance. Anything that's so unusual and different to the conventional would be, end up being the way it is. Yeah.
Because you came through the Blues, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then, what age did you leave the Blues?
I left when I was just after my 20. When I was 20.
Now, there was a lot of hype around you growing up, I believe anyway, and I think everyone else would have believed. How does that pressure, you spoke about pressure earlier, did you feel that pressure growing up?
Not at all, no. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I just love playing rugby. I've played it since I was 4. Most of the time, always been the biggest person in the team, so maybe that's why. I don't know. It just felt no pressure because I was just a big person always, and growing up, I was, that carried on throughout until you probably get to maybe late teens, where the bigger people catch up, or you start playing against men, and that size isn't everything.
Now, as a back, if you're a winger, right, you can debut pretty young and be okay. Now, it's the opposite for a forward. I find, you've got big bodies, and then you've got a man body, and then you've got actual technique and understanding. Do you remember the first time that you went against a pack and went, fuck? That little humble moment.
No, there's been quite a few. I didn't start playing the front row till I was 17, or was it 17, 18? And it took at least another 4 years or so to feel comfortable and or to be able to scrummage consistently. That's probably the biggest thing that was difficult to pick up on. But I do remember, a couple of times in New Zealand, especially when I was 20, where in a couple of games I was like, oh God, not another one. Yeah.
I find, you're going against a lot of Polynesians over there as well. Did you find it was more the bigger blokes you had issues with, or sometimes the smaller blokes?
Neither really. It was generally when you played against the Super Rugby players, who were experienced players, and even if they were young, they were, I don't know what the difference is, but just the way they're coached, and it's so difficult to play against them. Even a few months after, turning up in New Zealand. Although I had no idea that I'd end up playing ITM Cup, initially before going over. A few months later, I'm playing against some of the best teams in the country, which were full of All Blacks, Super Rugby players, and it was ridiculous.
How did that opportunity come across? Because there was not many youngsters going over to play in New Zealand at that stage. Where did the opportunity come in?
So because I don't recall roughly when during the season that I was told that I was going to leave Cardiff. Is at my agent is a Kiwi, and he thought, why not go to New Zealand and at least play some rugby, because I guess after playing 20s, 2 years of 20s, that my final season in the academy, I didn't play much rugby. So that's what ended up happening. And that was pretty much it. And it was a shot to nothing. I didn't know what else to do, so I thought, oh, why not? It's what have you got to lose? And that was pretty much it.
What was your mentality like going over there? Because you're not just learning rugby, you're learning culture as well, and culture's massive over there. Yeah, it's I feel like they breathe it. It's very the Māori culture. Yeah, in everything that they do is kind of a way of living. Did you find that too? That when you were in there, that it was. Possibly if you have a manager as well, he'd probably give you a little bit of an update before you went on. But I find the people amazing. Yeah,
probably not as much as I would have expected, especially considering the area I was in Whangarei, which is a very densely Māori area. But I wouldn't say it was, a shock. It was more just learning about different cultures, maybe their way of life, because it's, although I guess the landscape is quite similar to here, their weather is much better, the outdoor sort of activities they're able to do is so much far more beyond, than what's capable here, is that they just have a completely different way of life. So I guess as there's no other way than to just embrace it and, get involved in it.
So you played there, and you were there for a season and a half or 2 seasons?
2 seasons, yeah. I went there in May 2013, and then left in December 2014.
And then where did you go?
I ended up at Doncaster Knights in the Championship, yeah.
They're a good team though, aren't they?
Yeah. Even now, Joe Ford, who's just left to come to Sale to be the attack coach, they've always been a competitive club. I didn't really... I just wanted to be... I left New Zealand because I wanted to be closer to family. It was a pretty big reason before going to New Zealand, which is maybe another reason why I left. I'm not too sure why. It just felt right at the time, and there was also a reason why I wanted to return. And then I ended up at Donny, and just after my 22nd birthday, and even that was an eye opener, completely different to ITM Cup. And it's such a competitive league, although I guess it's not spoken about much, especially in Wales. That the Championship is a very tough level to play at.
There's a few boys now playing in there. I think one of the guys who comes dipping with us, Nathan Strong, his son plays. He's with Doncaster.
Yeah, Morgan Strong. Yeah, I've heard a bit about him. Yeah, he's on it. Yeah,
he's got some good raps on him. Surely, I thought he's just signed for commentary now, I believe.
I think so. Yeah,
he's a good player. He's got something about him.
I've not seen him play, but yeah, there's so many players that end up going to the Championship, whether it's because they leave the academies at a young age or because they're not given the opportunities that they know they are going to get in England. Good on them for trying that. Yeah, as you say, Morgan's been in the champ for I think maybe 2 or 3, 4 years, and he's proven to be one of the better prospects from Wales going to the Championship, and just trying their best to see what can be possible.
What's up, guys? This podcast is brought to you by UTest. UTest provides clinically accurate, rapid home testing kits for a variety of medical conditions and deficiencies. Designed for convenience, these tests deliver results in just 5 minutes, eliminating the need to wait days or weeks for lab results. The range includes tests for prostate PSA levels, bowel cancer screening, onset menopause to fertility, and more. All tests are available with the next day delivery at www.utest.co.uk. Use the code 0010 for 10% off your order. Now, let's go back to the episode. What did all of these events teach you about you, though? Because I think when we're comfortable in our hometown, big fish, small pond mentality, what has this taught you about getting out of that nest?
I guess it's... To be honest, I don't really know. I've never thought about such a question. I guess just the willingness to try anything. Yeah. Because what is there other than experiencing different things in life? What's the point of not like you're just saying, staying in your hometown, or just staying in the Rhondda? I could have easily just done that at 20 years old and thinking, I guess I'll just go play for my local club. Although there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Just there's more to life than just staying stagnant, staying where you are.
100%, man. I think there's so many boys that could have gone further but didn't go further because they lacked the discipline, or they were content in staying where they were, what I mean? And each to their own. Everything happens for a reason, I suppose. But
yeah, absolutely. I guess the most important thing is probably I was given the opportunity to, and thank goodness I took it, because there's no way I would be where I am now if I didn't leave Wales when I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
Even at 20 years old, that was probably one of the hardest, absolutely the hardest point in my life. Not just rugby, but family too.
What was going on back then? If you don't mind sharing it, Will.
No, of course. Only I guess the boys that I played rugby with only really knew about it. But I lost my father when I was 20 years old. Oh, wow. Which
Sorry,
was thank you, but which is 12 years ago, just over 12 years ago. I don't know, probably even really spoken about it much to many people aside from my fiance, really. But this probably internally and maybe subconsciously probably pushed me on more than anything else, really.
Wow. What if you don't mind me asking, obviously he was young, what did he pass from?
He passed from a triple bypass, triple heart bypass, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, complications post-surgery, yeah.
I'm sorry to hear, man. Obviously 12 years ago, is it's regardless if it was 12 years or if it was 30 years, still dad, right?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And it's, think about him every day, and it's always, doesn't mean I still don't cry about it or still don't get upset. And, I guess it's strangely nice to feel that because everything means so much more.
Yeah. It's powerful, man, because I believe, our fathers, growing up, they're the ones we kind of want to make proud when we
Exactly,
play.
yeah.
If you're playing at 4 years old to 40 years old, if he's on that sideline, and he's giving you that thumbs up to indicate, hey, good job, you know what I mean? And you're always craving that. I was anyway, still do.
No, exactly. I always think if it wasn't for him being so harsh, but, in a parenting way, as a critic of your performances or even just training, that is no way I'd be what as I am today because, even now I still think, I wonder what he would think of how I played or, and what he would say and so on.
Do you reckon he'd be proud?
I bloody hope so, yeah.
Top man, Will. Love that, brother. Love that, man. Yeah, I love that story. And then after Doncaster, you went back down to Wales then, right? Or was that?
No, I went across to Sale. I left Doncaster in 2017. I think we had 2 back-to-back sort of semi-final and, my second year, a semi-final, and then in my third year, a semi-final to get promoted to the Premiership. Again, proving that Doncaster is such a good team and I guess an environment for, for anyone, any professional rugby player to get to, just to, because it's, I've already said the Championship is a difficult place to play and that, proving that Donny is one of the better environments to be in. Back to Sale. I went there in 2017 when Steve Diamond was the head chap there. That was I guess same to everything else. It was just let's just see where this goes. I had no idea what was going to happen, and probably one of the more enjoyable areas of my career, which was going to Sale. Yeah, and I absolutely loved it.
Well, you loved it that much. You went back twice.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
You went. So when did you go on loan? You went on loan in that period as well. Was that with Sale when you went over to France, or was that a different time?
that was at the end of my period with the Scarlets. Yeah.
You went on loan then to Racing, right?
No, my deal ended, and then I went to Racing. Would have been during the World Cup. Yeah. So the World Cup, and when was that? 2023. Yeah. And that was a hell of an experience going to France. My family moved with me, and they loved it too. It was unbelievable being able to live in Paris and train in Paris and just, spend that much time in Paris. And it was,
Paris ain't cheap though, is it? Paris ain't cheap at all, man. I got it for
we made it cheap.
Yeah,
we absolutely loved it. We went to some nice restaurants. Not just that, but just experiencing their culture too, like 100%. We've already touched on. There's so many unbelievable places in that city that you could just spend all day at just one spot.
What I find the French super, I don't know, nonchalant. Very
I guess a bit of both. Like they're also very passionate because you've seen how they are with their rugby, and they maybe on the same level as well as the Welsh people in terms of how critical they are of their national team. But not just that, but just their support of their other, just the top 14, the clubs in the top 14, the Pro D2, and so on. There's a massive support for French rugby.
What would you say the difference is between the French league then and the English league, the Pro? The top 14.
Top 14, yeah.
Yeah. What would you say the difference is? Because that looks like they just throw the ball around, never go.
Yeah. I don't really know. They're quite, French term jouet. And they do throw it about, like you say. I guess maybe English rugby is a bit more structured, or British rugby is a bit more structured than what they have over there. But aside from that, I don't really know because, like when we played against Toulouse in the Heineken Cup quarterfinal a couple of months ago, we were going to scrum penalties. We were getting more penalties, more tries. I'm not too sure, to be honest. Maybe it's their strength in depth. I don't know. Just because, especially the last maybe 5 to 10 years or so, you always see a top 14 team in the latter stages of a Heineken Cup. And as for the last maybe 4 or 5 years, it's always been a French team winning it. Maybe that's the reason why. It's just their strength in depth and ability to have better squads, maybe.
Yeah. I watched the final. I went to it, Northampton and what was it? Bordeaux, yeah. And just that was a hell of a game. Just the speed of it.
Yeah.
At first half, I was like, wow. And Northampton did pretty well to just. They were playing good rugby, but they were tactically smart. That Finn Smith, is it?
Yeah, Finn Smith.
He was kicking good. But then second half, Bordeaux just notched it up.
They just flick the switch and it's basically unstoppable.
Yeah.
And they have a handful of players that can just do things which not many can. And it's on days such as a Heineken Cup final, that's all you need to win a game.
Yeah. Just the fact that the 9 for Bordeaux is like the bench 9 for France usually. Yeah. And he was carving it up. Just you're like, this guy's a freak, and he's on the bench for France because of Dupont. But what are your thoughts on Pollock, the flanker? What do you reckon of him?
This is unexpected. Look, he's a hell of an athlete.
Yeah.
I assume that a lot of people have seen the try he scored against us back in, I think it was April. And, there's nothing you can do about that. He's a hell of an athlete. A lot of people have, things to say about his attitude, I guess. I don't see anything wrong with it. It's not for me, but if that's what he likes to do, then why not?
I think people get confidence and arrogance mixed because I see confidence with him, and he's said a few things, but he's backed it up.
Right.
I'm like, I rate that, and I just think it's that new generation of confidence that growing up we were like, be humble, put your head down, get on with your work, and if someone says well done, to say thank you and move on, you know. Don't talk yourself up, and maybe that's a Welsh thing as well. I don't know, but when I see him, I'm like, he's gonna cop a lot of shit, but I like it. I like it, and he's not your traditional English guy, as in, he's, some English people are, different, but I mean, he's just out there different. He's got that energy about him. I like it. He'll get your team up. But for a youngster to come in, how old is he?
I don't know. I think he played 20s last year.
So be 19, 20,
maybe 20, yeah.
So he's still a baby, really, right? And he's out there barking orders, going mad, and I'm fair play to him, man.
No, you got to have a bit, big set of balls to be able to do that. Maybe it's something that he's always done. Who knows? No, I certainly don't. But it's, I guess, being on the receiving end of it, it's not nice.
Yeah, because you just be like, someone shut this guy up.
Yeah, I guess especially, like you just said, when we were growing up, there's a hierarchy, really. Yeah. And if you're a young bloke in the academy, you're never in the first team, you might be, early 20s, you're still, most of the time keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
So, it is very unusual to see such a person, especially of his age, behaving how he is,
Yeah. You've always been a pretty introverted bloke, I'd say, more reserved, would you say?
Yeah, certainly. I've always been an introvert, very quiet, very short on words, I guess, unless, I have something to say. But most of the time I'm pretty quiet, and, even with my fiance, I don't really, of course we talk, but you know what I mean?
Just moved.
Yeah. I'm not going to be, talking the house down to her.
Yeah. What's been your biggest lesson in your career?
Biggest lesson? I guess just believe in yourself. Yeah. Because there's so many times that people have said you're not good enough, or this doesn't work, and so on. But you just got to brush it off and keep going forward, keep moving forward, because you never know where you can end up, or what position you might be in, and how successful you may be. Because if you said 20 minutes ago, if what's the point of being stagnant?
Yeah. I totally agree, and I think that's where, you know, people talk about mental resilience. Mm-hmm. Resilience is not when you're just winning all the time. Resilience is when your back's up against the wall.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe a coach is not, you're not clicking with a coach. Mm-hmm. It's okay, well, do I stay here and stay stagnant? Mm-hmm. Or is that door just to the right over there better for me? And sometimes it's taking that opportunity, being optimistic about it, and just you know, instead of becoming a victim to what someone said, you would use it as motivation, right?
Right.
And I think that's a big one, you know. I think from the outside, people see sports players and they've got the hell of a life. They've just got this smooth path up to the top. And you're like, now this guy is probably injured on a Monday, can barely walk on a Monday, sore, finally getting into it on a Tuesday. Mm-hmm. You know, his contract's up. He's got other shit going on, and you're always on. You're always. It's like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's very difficult. It's just, it would be, I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't be worth it if it's so easy. You know, when you are successful, or when you win particular games, or when you just win in general, you know, get into a Premiership semi-final. Yeah, we got to a Premiership semi-final, but it wasn't enough. Maybe it makes those eventual victories so much sweeter when you have so many people knocking you down, or, you know, losses and injuries and so on. Makes those wins so much better, much more special.
You talk about setbacks, knocking down. When you were at Cardiff, was your contract expired, or did they kind of give you the tap on the shoulder?
Both.
Both.
Yeah. So it was.
Was Di Young the coach?
No, he just left to go to Wasps. It was Justin Bennell. Justin Bennell left, and then it was Phil Davis. But I was still in the academy anyway. Like, I was nowhere near the first team. But it was the end of my academy deal, which would have been my third year in the academy. And that was it, really. It just said, look, something along the lines of, you know, we don't think you're good enough to be a professional rugby player. I can't recall exactly, but, you know, we're not going to be renewing a deal, and that was effectively it. And then a few months later, I ended up in New Zealand. So, you know, at the time, I was, disappointed, angry, upset, yes, but also at the same time, I was like, well, okay, you know, yes, you can look back in anger, but what's that? What good is that for you?
No, exactly. I see it as a great opportunity. Mm-hmm. Look at the career you've had now, and obviously I'm just asking the question because it's great as well for listeners, even if they're young in their career or middle of their career, and they're hearing this and they go, WillGriff still playing for Wales, and he's had knockbacks, he's had, you know, taps on the shoulder, and still turned up and had a better career than most of the people that stayed stagnant at one club, you know?
Yeah.
That's the power in that.
Mm-hmm. I guess that a lot of that was learned at maybe a young age, though, through my Rhondda Schools coach, Chris Jones, which a lot of people know of. And he tries to instill that early, his mental toughness, not so much the knocking backs, but just your resilience. And that's one thing that he always put on us at an early age. Not just that, but being tough with fatigue and so on. And that was very important.
Nice, I like that. Hey everyone, it's Ollie Olds here with a quick word from our incredible sponsor, Pitch Roofer. You know, your home is your castle, and nothing protects that castle better than a solid, reliable roof. That's where Pitch Roofer comes in. They're not just building roofs, they're building trust, community, and peace of mind. Pitch Roofer has been serving our local community for years, and what really sets them apart is their commitment to giving back, from supporting local sport teams to donating to charities. They're making a real difference beyond roofing. Together, we are stronger. Now, if your roof is looking a little worse for wear, or you are thinking it might be time for a full replacement, Pitch Roofer has got you covered with top quality solutions tailored to protect your home and boost that curb appeal. Why should you choose Pitch Roofer? Let me break it down for you. Experienced professionals. These guys know this stuff with years of expertise in residential roofing. Affordable rates, competitive pricing with no hidden costs, high quality materials, durable weather resistant products that stand the test of time. Free inspections, get the condition of your roof checked at no cost. 100% satisfaction guaranteed. They're not happy until you are. So whether it's a repair, a replacement, or you just want a peace of mind your roof is in good conditions, give Pitch Roofer a call on 01656 470016. A text message to 07540 443345 or email Gerald at pitchroofer.co.uk. Pitch Roofer, building more than roofs, building a stronger community. Now, back to the show. We were talking earlier about injuries. So you've only had 2 surgeries your whole...
I've had 3 surgeries, but only 2 relating to rugby injuries, yeah.
What was the non-rugby related one?
A really unusual condition called exercise-induced laryngeal obstruction, which is...
Explain that.
Yeah.
Calm that down for me, Will.
I had a couple of growths in my throat.
Wow.
Would have been at the end of my first season at the Scarlets, very unusual. And towards the end of that season, I couldn't run or do anything without struggling to breathe.
Wow.
So I had 2 growths in my throat, and then when I started to breathe excessively, my heart rate would increase, and then I would struggle to breathe to the effect that I would nearly pass out.
Wow.
And then that continued for a couple of months, and then it finally got investigated.
Were you playing?
I think I played maybe 2 or 3 games with this. At the time, I had no idea. I thought it was just asthmatic or maybe hay fever. I don't know. And then, but it carried on for maybe 2, 3, 4 more months during, post-season, trying to keep fit and stuff. And then even returning to the Bronco and couldn't complete a Bronco because I couldn't breathe.
Wow.
Yeah. To the effect that I had to have oxygen pitch side. So eventually I had that operation. So thankfully I had that. Otherwise there's no way I'd be playing today. Other than that, I ruptured my bicep at the end of the first block of preseason last year. And then I just had a knee clear out and a knee arthroscopy.
Yeah. They're pretty quick turnarounds, though, the arthroscopies.
So I believe, yeah.
Well, yeah, we were just talking about earlier. They're funny old things because you feel like they're fine. They're just full of fluid until it takes, what's it been, a week?
It'll be a week tomorrow, yeah.
Quick turnaround to be walking around and you're moving fine, so which is a good sign. How do you feel? Obviously, the Welsh squad now, they're in Japan.
Yeah.
Did you have any comms?
No comms. I don't know if anything was said, regarding my knee because it's something I've struggled for maybe since mid-February or so. So I don't know if that's what was the reason. But that's it really. No comms. So it is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah, I just I think Jared was the same when I spoke to him. He's obviously having a little layoff at the moment. Yeah. You boys have had big seasons though, haven't you?
I guess it's always tough playing the Premiership, not just that, but playing in Europe. And you don't get much time off really. I know that maybe a lot of people will say you don't need time off. You play rugby professionally, but I guess the older you get, the more difficult it gets to be able to, for your body to perform consistently. Yeah. And that's probably the hardest part really, is, slowly, coming to the realization that it takes so much more prep, rehab, prehab and so on, just, minute things that need doing to be able to get on the pitch, the training pitch, and just to get through week by week really.
It's you got to be smart with your body, haven't you? When you're younger, you just run onto the field, kick the ball, drop kicks to warm up or something like that. I want to know, mate, this is going to be typical bro questions now with you. Okay. So when you were 17 at college, what were you bench pressing and squatting and deadlifting?
When I was 17, I think I could bench maybe 140, 150. Squat maybe 200 and something, and deadlift maybe 200 and something. I guess it's just because I've already said I've always enjoyed going to the gym. If we had a free lesson, I'd go to the gym. If I wasn't going to be picked up for another hour or so after college, I'd go to the gym. If lunch was, instead of sitting in the canteen at lunch, I'd go to the gym. And just did that really.
Where'd you instill this discipline?
I guess maybe it's because I'm quiet. I don't know. It's just another way to entertain myself. Because I don't have much to say to most people. And as I said, I'm just not wasting time. But instead of just sitting still and talking to people, maybe I should prefer my own company a lot more and enjoy going to the gym. And that's pretty much as simple as that.
Wow, it's a pretty good habit though. It's not a bad habit at all to do, is it?
No, I guess not. I guess it's more difficult these days. With the wear and tear from rugby. Doesn't mean I don't enjoy it.
What would you be lifting now?
Well, nowhere near as much. Well, compared to when I was 17, yeah, I've surpassed that.
Yeah. Okay, when you were at your, as in, body was clear, no
Mm-hmm.
niggles, no thing. What are you pumping now? What was the best you've pumped?
Probably when I was at Donny, maybe. I don't know what you want to know, bench, squat, so on. Yeah, I think my best whilst I was there, I could bench around 230.
Bench 230.
Yeah, for one, yeah. I could do sets of 200. I could squat mid 250s quite comfortably. I could, I'd never really been a big deadlifter, but I could, deadlift over 200. Shit. But I guess I've just, always enjoyed benching more than anything, really.
And what would your match day weight be at, kgs?
At the moment, it's about maybe 128.
128, yeah.
It's been a lot more. It's been a lot less.
Is that the sweet spot for you?
I'd say so. Yeah, between it can fluctuate. A kilo, 2 or 3, pretty easily. But yeah, between 126, 128, 129. Yeah.
Are you someone who's quite big into nutrition and things like that as well?
Not massive. I'm aware of because when you're in an academy, it's one of the first things they instill upon you is nutrition.
Yeah.
So I've been aware of it for a long time. I'm not sort of stupidly strict on it. A lot of people are. I enjoy my food. Sometimes I eat a lot, sometimes I don't.
So you wouldn't have like a ballpark calories you'd eat a day?
Nah? Not really, no. I guess, at the moment, not a lot, considering my knee. I can't, move much. But maybe in season, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 a day. I don't really calorie count or anything like that. I just go on how I feel. I know how much sort of protein and so on my body needs, and that's pretty much all I kind of target, really.
It's interesting to know, isn't it? Because you got these people out there that are just, anal on it, and you got yourself like eating how you feel, which is probably a good. The ballpark where you've got to be putting away a day anyway, right? But then, it's a fine line where you feel good about it or not. I got a sweet tooth. I love a bit of chocolate. Do you, or you're not? Yeah,
I've got to help a sweet. I've got a tooth for everything.
Steak, it sounds like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I guess some people can be quite particular about what they eat. But I don't know why, but I'm not. Always been a big eater. Maybe that's why I was so big when I was younger. I don't know. I was having steaks when I was, weekly, daily, having a lot of red meat when I was in my teens. Even before college. So
nice.
Maybe that's the reason why.
Yeah, maybe. I needed to start doing that back then as well. I want to know what does Will do outside of rugby? What decompresses Will besides lifting tin?
Well, the last couple, maybe 3, 4, 5 years is my family.
Nice.
My purpose is them. And it's pretty much that, my 2 boys, my fiance, and just spending time with them really, and spending time with my family, my mum, my brother, my niece, and I guess that's where I get my most enjoyment. It's just spending time with them. Nice. Doesn't matter what it is. Could be just watching someone on the sofa. Could be going to just taking the dog for a walk. So it could be as simple as that. But it's just being around them really.
What dog you got?
I've got a sausage dog.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I got a sausage dog.
Big fella like you with the sausage dog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fair enough. That'd be funny walking down the street.
Yeah, I've had some, some eyebrows raised and people making some comments, having a sausage dog, but, I love my dog. And he's very different to most sausage dogs. He's happy to be, stroked and, he'll chase the ball all day, which is a pain in the ass too, but.
He's not yappy.
He's a little bit yappy.
Yeah.
But it's because he wants the attention.
Yeah.
He's very different to me.
So you've got to give him more than you only giving. Nice, mate. What would you be doing if you were a rugby player then? You come across intelligence. I'm going to say something
I generally have no idea. I honestly have no clue. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do after rugby. When that is, I don't know.
You've got a couple more years left in you, man.
I hope so.
Definitely.
I'm hoping, hopefully I got 2 or 3 more left, but when that comes, I genuinely have no idea. Like I said, if I didn't go to New Zealand, I had no idea what I would do after it. I generally wanted to go to college because they played rugby, and that was probably the biggest part of the program.
Yeah.
Is rugby, but also gym, and I guess that coincided with me transitioning to being a front row, to being a tight end prop, is that I was able to play so much.
Who was the person that told you give prop a go?
So I initially I didn't make. So I played under 16s in the back row. And then the following season, where Cardiff Blues North, Cardiff Blues South combined to be Cardiff, and I wasn't in the squad for the under 18s, and so I thought, okay, that's done then. Then I guess all of these are maybe considered lifelines perhaps to my rugby career. I got a letter saying that I wasn't, sorry. That's how they did it back then. You got a letter through the post. You're not in the squad for the under 18 season. So I was like, okay. And then maybe a handful of weeks later, I got a phone call. I don't remember who from. Do you want to come back? But how about giving prop a go? So I don't really know. Even to this day, I don't recall exactly what I thought. I just brushed it off. Thought I don't know. No one. I know it's a bit maybe a silly comment, but no one really grows up wanting to play in the front row.
Yeah, that's a tough gig.
But the reason I gave it a shot was one, my dad, and then Chris Jones sat me down and said, if you can try this, if you succeed, you know how not easy, but what could be before you. If it doesn't, what's the worst that can happen? And I guess if it wasn't for Chris Jones, that I wouldn't have given it a go.
Good guy, this Chris Jones is. Mm-hmm. What's he doing now?
He's still coaching around the schools.
Is he? Wow! Shout out Chris Jones at Around the Schools. He seems like a top bloke.
Yes, mate. He's a hell of a bloke.
You keep in touch with him today?
Now and again.
Yeah.
Yeah, now and again. Yeah.
Are you going back up there now while you're home?
Yeah.
Nice.
Back to around there. Yeah.
Yeah, nice, mate. It's your accent's changed over the years, man. Mm-hmm. You got a bit of a Sale accent, bit of a Kiwi one. It's definitely not Rhondda anymore.
No, to be honest, I can't even recall what my accent was before I went to New Zealand.
Yeah.
I guess that I don't know why, but sometimes depending on I'm around, my accent slightly changes to where I am, or and so on, and then my default is just being Kiwi, and I have no idea why that is. Maybe it's just the way that my brain works. Yeah. That it's somehow just put the auto kind of accent to New Zealand, which is very, very weird.
It's not a bad
even
thing.
To me.
It's not a bad thing. It's funny. Some people are like that they listen to Irish accents. The next thing they pick up an Irish twang. Yeah. My older brother was like that sometimes. When we're in New Zealand, you'd be around so many Irish all day. Next thing he's saying their little slang words, and you're like, oi. Man, I'm really grateful that you're coming in today and speaking the way you have so openly, sharing your journey, man. And I know you got so many more years to go. And I'm excited to see you back in the Welsh jersey as well. Is that something which was I've touched on it a little bit, but when did you get your debut?
I was supposed to in Six Nations 2020, but then COVID, which was really weird at the time too. But then I didn't till the following year, which is in the autumn against South Africa. So, which is what almost 4 years ago. So to have a 3-year gap between then and the Six Nations this year, again, had no idea. Very unexpected. Thought initially back in 2020 I would have gotten more. Very disappointed I didn't, and moved on from that. But yeah, again, very surprised to be involved. A few months ago. Did
you give up hope?
You never give up hope. I guess it maybe falls into the back of your mind a bit, that you're less likely to be involved. Yeah, you never give up hope. It's always something you want to do. You always want to play for your country. You always want to do your best for your family. It doesn't matter who you play for. You always want that.
Yeah, for sure. It's I suppose you always got that hope there. What's the cap rule? Is it how many caps have you got to have to be eligible? Or does it matter
to go abroad? I think it's 25. I think that's still the case.
So how many have you got?
I've got 5.
5, but then how are you eligible? How did you get around it, or did you start?
Because I think if you don't get offered a deal or anything like that, or maybe it's because the 3 years had passed, I don't really know. Yeah, I'm not too sure. I don't really know the answer to that.
What are your thoughts on the cap rule? I don't think it's going to get you in any trouble, but I mean, I think it's a bit backwards, personally.
I guess when you have, currently 4 regions, I understand why they'd want to keep them in Wales. To be limited, by, initially you had to play in Wales to be in Wales. Am I right? I don't know. I know a few players have.
Yeah.
George went to Northampton. Biggs went to Northampton.
Josh Adams with Worcester.
Josh was with Worcester, but I believe because he's already with Worcester, that's the reason why.
Okay.
I could be wrong. It's tricky, isn't it? Because understandably, rugby's a short career. You want these people to be able to maximise the opportunity they have to make as much money as possible. So it is very tricky. I know maybe 25 is maybe big enough for most to be able to not, because it takes, what's that, maybe 2-3 years if you play every game. Yeah. So it could take a while to get to 25. And even, I guess that's, maybe even when players go past 50, that's when they finally, go across the bridge or go to France or anywhere really to try other opportunities.
It makes sense. It makes sense too. I think, careers are short-lived anyway. You've got to make the most out of your career financially. But after that, you unless you're I don't know, maybe a Dan Bigger or something, you might have to. Some people are back on the job sites, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
I think Andy Powell's doing bits up in Brecon or something. He's a character, isn't he? Did you ever get the chance to play with him or play against him?
No, I've never met him.
Really?
But yeah, everyone knows his kind of personality. And
I had to do a speaking event, with him and ask him questions. And I was like, this guy's fucking bonkers.
Yeah.
He's just clean off. We're sitting there, stage of people, audience, and I'm asking him these questions. And I'm just like, he's like teed me up beforehand. Ask me this, ask me that. And you need subtitles when he talks.
Yeah.
But he's just bonkers. Every word's fucking. But I can see why he'd be entertaining in a team environment as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's some people think particular individuals are controversial, but it's necessary to have such people.
Yeah, you got to have it. You got to have different characters in the team that when the vibe's low, they come in and chat shit.
Yeah. And
then you've got the ones who, right, we need to dial it in now, boys. And who would you say is the one who says that, has that dial in mentality at Sale?
George Ford.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Wow.
Even some of the younger boys, whether it's because they've had so much experience in terms of rugby. I know I say young, but now they're, easily into their hundreds, and multiple England caps being carried. Tom Curry. There's so many players, even South Africans, Rob Dupree, JL, Daniel. They're exactly the same. There's so many players there that are, such characters where, they're willing to have fun, but they're so driven, which is also why Sale is so successful. But the same with the coaching staff. They're happy to have fun. They don't want to make training mundane. And drag on. They try and make it as fun as possible, make the environment fun, and I guess that's why it's such a good place to be.
I think that's a great way to look at it, and I think I've said this before, playing, I think it's having the awareness if you are a joker. Some jokers can joke up to literally getting out and then flick that switch and they're on, where I know for a fact I can't do that. I have to be a bit, dialing in a bit, focusing, stretching and doing everything. And it's being aware that, okay, I can't hang around with that player up till warm up or out because you're fucked. You know what I mean, though?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. But I guess being a quiet person, it doesn't really bother me too much. So that I'm, not in my own head, but, I get neither too excited nor, or the other way, or too silly. There's a lot of boys that, can be stupid as anything right up until crossing onto the training pitch and then switch on. I can't really do that, but each to their own.
Mate, it's Any questions, Percival, or anything else I've missed about this? That I want?
I guess not. I don't think there's anything we've missed. Perhaps I know we've touched on that we went through college together. I guess that before going to Bridgend College, Pencode College, I didn't know about it, but I'm glad I did. In terms of being able to meet someone like Garnick.
Yeah, wow.
And Craig Warlow, two special men, and Craig is still there now. But I think without Gar, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I know we've touched on different coaching styles and different people, and he was exactly the same. A very very good people person, somebody who wants to meet your family, somebody who wants to talk to your family, somebody who cares about you as an individual. Who's a very special man.
He's a great guy. Both of them are great guys. They're I've got to know him more, obviously, because I wasn't in the rugby with you boys, but I've got to know Gar and Craig probably more after. I've had to go and do a couple of talks for Craig, but then Gar's come in here a couple of times for a chat, as a coffee. He tries to call me all the time when I'm busy, and he's probably pissed off at me because I never. It takes me like 10 days to get back to him. But what a top bloke!
Yeah,
he's salt of the earth type of blokes, and they generally care. And if you've noticed right now, the common theme between good coaches and good people is we never once talked about technical stuff. We never once talked about skills. We just talk about people. Because if you can get the person in the right mindset, the rest is easy then, you know. And it seems I've had so many people sit where you are now and talk about Craig and Gar, in particular Gar, especially with the forwards. Just says a lot about him, doesn't it?
I think so, yeah. He's always been a top coach. And obviously, given his circumstances, which makes it even more special, really. You couldn't ask for a better person to be coaching young men.
I tell you, man, when I did that podcast with him, I hadn't seen Gar in about, it's got to be 10 years because I was away. Okay. Caught up with him, and obviously his Parkinson's has increased from back when we were in college. And it overwhelmed me. Not in a like, you poor thing meant that, because he wouldn't even allow that. Yeah. He'd be like, shut the fuck up, you know? But it just gave me so much like, what am I worried about?
Exactly. Like why are you, making a fuss, to yourself about how your body's feeling? Yeah. Even when we were in college, he would always challenge me to chins, to bench, to anything. And, that's what, back in 2008, maybe 2009.
It's got to be that, around that ballpark time.
He's doesn't matter, how, like you say, it can be a bit of a shock to see how he's walking and so on. But his competitiveness and his attitude is unbelievable.
It's a freak, and like when I say that about the Parkinson's, I don't mean it in a negative. It's just the way he carries himself now, regardless of anything, and it just makes you go, fuck your feelings, I'll get the fuck, get on with your shit, man. And he's a credit. But how was the American trip? You boys went over there, didn't you?
We went to, I think, Philadelphia, and it was a good trip. It was fun.
Yeah, nice.
I'd already, that was like I said, that was during the time that I moved to the front row, but I played that tour in the back row, and it was just so fun. Running around people. Not that I can do that anymore, running over people.
Running over people now?
Yeah. Considering they've been doing that for so long, they still do. It's so brilliant.
Yeah.
Like, for boys that have, maybe some that have never left the UK, never mind go to America, and to give them a week or so over there to play rugby, meet new people, go to, these brilliant cities in America to experience it is brilliant.
It's nice, man. It really is. I appreciate you sharing and speaking about those two in particular, because they're great blokes, and I want to give them as much recognition. Gar took Clonarn still unbeaten 1 year and promoted them.
Wow.
I think either last season, season before, so credit to him. But mate, like I said, Will, I'm super grateful for you coming in. I know you got a busy life and you're coming down and you want to spend time with family, but for you to come in for an hour and just touch base, catch up, chat a bit of rubbish, talk about life, and just see how well you do, man. That means a lot to me. So thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me on. It's I guess not apprehensive, but like I say, I'm a bit of an introvert and don't really say too much. So it's a bit of an unusual sort of scenario for me to be in. Yeah. But I'm really appreciative of you inviting me on.
Thank you, man. I'm a bit like your sausage dog, bro. You just got to give me attention. What are you grateful for, Will?
For my family.
Love that.
It's as simple as that. It's you know, I wouldn't be where I am or who I am today without my family. The strength of my mother, the strength of my brother, my fiance Asil, and you know, to enjoy life with my 2 boys now. I know it sounds easy, but you know, you do your best for them because you want them to succeed, to have a good childhood, and just, you know, enjoy them whilst you can, because I know maybe a lot of parents will listen to this, I don't really know, but you know, you can easily get frustrated with their behaviour or what they know. You know, there's a number of things that can irritate you, but just to step back and realise, you know, they're not always going to be as they are as they are right now today. You know, they're going to be a touch different tomorrow, and so on and so on, and every other day and every other week. So just enjoy it while you can, because you know, there might be in 10, 20, however many years time that, you know, you might look back and think that maybe minor switch to anger or, you know, shouting might come back to haunt you.
I couldn't imagine you shouting, to be honest.
I don't really shout, to be honest. Unfortunately for Max, I do a little bit, but I really so cross myself when I do. And although I'm very quiet, I'm strangely, you know, quite loud in the rugby pitch.
Yeah.
But I'm not much of a shouter either. So yeah.
Brother, absolute pleasure, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, mate. I really appreciate it.